And I'm asking this question: where are we in Bible prophecy? Let's read. Verse 20, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then recognize its desolation has come near. Then those in Judea must flee to the mountains. Those inside the city must leave it, and those who are in the country must not enter it, because these are the days of vengeance, to fulfill all things that are written. Woe to pregnant women and nursing mothers in those days, for there will be great distress in the land, and wrath against this people. They will fall by the edge of the sword, and led captive into all nations, and Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Now, it's this last statement that I want us to pay attention to. Let's look at it again. It says, and Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Now, in order to understand this particular passage of Scripture, and keep in mind that I am not coming anywhere close to doing the subject of Bible prophecy, the exhaustive subject of Bible prophecy, it's due. I just want to come and just share this one particular thought here. And my thought is this: in order for us to locate where we are in prophecy, there are a couple of things we have to know. And this statement is one of them. The time of the Gentiles. So what is this time of the Gentiles? Let me read it again. He says, verse 24, they will fall by the edge of the sword and be led captive into all nations, and Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Now, I wanted to read that again because that statement is how we locate where we are right now. Now, there's a couple other things I want to talk about. I'm going to go to the book of Daniel because there's something critical in Daniel that we need to understand. This is Daniel chapter 9. But hold on, let me give you a little background before I read this. Because we're talking about the subject of locating ourselves in prophecy. This passage of Scripture came about because Daniel was studying the prophecies of Jeremiah. And one of the things he discovered was that the exile which he was living would only last for 70 years. And he began to pray and says, well, Lord, these 70 years are almost up. God sent the angel Gabriel and was explaining to Daniel what that 70 years meant. But then Gabriel went into other revelations about prophecy. And this is what he said. Verse 24, 70 weeks are decreed about your people. Now let's stop for a moment because we need to understand and unpack that. The term 70 or 70 weeks is 70 sets of 7-year periods, or a total number of 390. Don't worry, I'm not going to get too deep. But you need to understand what is going on here, and it'll be clear in a moment. 70 weeks are decreed upon about your people and your holy city to bring the rebellion to an end, to put a stop to sin, to wipe away iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. The reason why I said that because prophecy, and this is kind of a nutshell right here, sums it up right here. Biblical prophecy, for the most part, is God's revelation about His plan, His will concerning His people, Israel. That's what He said here, right? That the 70 weeks or the 390-year period is concerning how He's dealing with Israel. And that's going to be very important. Very important. So let's go back. Verse 25. Know and understand this. From the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Now that's a very important number. Now remember, he said 70 weeks are determined to do what? Seal up the prophecy, put a stop to sin, to bring in everlasting righteousness. But notice he says right here again, and this is important. He says, verse 25 again, from the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince would be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Why is that so important? Remember the 70 weeks, and this is kind of interesting here. The 70 weeks amount to a 490-year period of time. He just made a statement that says that this prophetic kind of clock would start timing when Cyrus, the Median Persian king, would issue the order to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. Now, if you want to get into more details with that, read the book of Nehemiah and Ezra, because they went back. They were under the Median Persians, and Cyrus the king gave the order. And Nehemiah and Jeremiah, they went back and they restored Jerusalem. But what that also did was it started a prophetic countdown clock. Now he gives us some very information about that. He said after 69 weeks, the Messiah would be cut off. That's important. Because now, remember, as Jesus is teaching in Luke 21, that meant we can locate that, right? We can say we are in week 69. Let's look at it further. He says, after, no, let me go back. Verse 25 again. Know and understand this, from the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, the Messiah, the Prince, will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be rebuilt with a plow and a mold and be built in difficult times. Now look at verse 26. After those 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and will have nothing. And the people that are coming to Prince will destroy the city with the flood, and the end will come with the flood until the wars. Until the end of the wars, there will be desolations and decrees. All right, sorry about stumbling over that. So, as we're locating ourselves in prophecy, remember, we're now, as we're in the time of Jesus, week 69. Why? Because he's cut off. Remember, he's also establishing righteousness. He's putting away sin. But now watch this now. Let's go on. We got one more thing to read. And he says here, verse 27, he will make a firm covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week, he will put a stop to sacrifice and the offering, and the abomination of desolation will be on the wing of the temple until the decree of destruction poured out on the desolator. Now that's important. I want to refer you to Matthew chapter 24, when Jesus says those exact words. When you see the abomination that makes desolate. Now, our Luke passage, let me read it one more time, because he says here, verse 20, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by the armies, then recognize that its desolation has come near. And then those in Judea must flee to the mountains, and those inside the city must leave it, and those who are on the country must not enter it. I'm going to skip down, verse 24. They will fall by the edge of the sword and be led captive into all nations, and Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Now, let me sum this all up real quick. The time of the Gentiles is this particular period of time where we are in between week 69. Actually, it is the entire time of the rule of man. When he speaks about Jerusalem being trampled, this came to pass in AD 70 and even persists into this day. So in short, where are we in prophecy? We are between week 69 and week 70. Now, you know, when he says that he'll make a covenant for 1 week, we know that hasn't happened yet, because that's the 7-year tribulation period. That is the week of the Antichrist, or the beast, or the man of sin. So we know that week hasn't happened yet. That's why I said we can locate ourselves and say we are between week 69 and 70. Now the other question is, how long will this week be? Because oftentimes we know that when the tribulation period starts, that 7 years later Jesus is going to return. How long will the time of the Gentiles? Let's read this one more time. This last statement here. It says Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles will be fulfilled. Well, when will the time of the Gentiles be over? And again, we don't know. And that's because that's in God's sovereignty. What is God doing during this time? And that's even more fascinating. In short, he's building his family, us. You see, the time of the Gentiles is also the time of the age of the church. And the age of the church is not in biblical prophecy because Paul said it was a mystery that was kept hid from the foundation of the world. So right now, we're between week 69 and week 70. How long will this happen? We don't know. What is God doing during this time? He's gathering his family, his sons and his daughters. That's what he's doing. So right now, we're between week 60 and week 70. How will we know week 70 begin? Because the abomination of the desolation will take place, and it hasn't taken place yet. In other words, those 7-year tribulation period we know hasn't happened yet. What should we be doing right now? Being about our Father's business. But also recognize that what God is doing right now is gathering his family, his children, his sons, his heirs. All right, that was a short snippet into Bible prophecy. All right, guys, so next time, I'll see you then.